Hi everyone, it's been another busy week here in the Legislature in Edmonton, but one of the most exciting things that happened this week, last night in fact, I think around the time that we were likely finishing up our teletown hall with South Calgary constituents, was the passing of Bill 15, the Choice in Education Act. This is a critical piece of legislation, and it's another campaign commitment that we have kept. Now, Alberta has a long and very proud history of school choice, and you might be thinking, what does that mean? That means that parents and students have options in terms of finding the best educational fit that meets their needs. And so this was a key part of our platform, and many of my constituents in Calgary Shaw felt very strongly about it. In addition to being in our platform, the Minister of Education consulted across the province with parents across Alberta. More than 50,000 Albertans took the time to provide their feedback, and that is all reflected in this bill. As parents, we do work hard every day. We want to love and support our kids. We want to help them learn and grow. We want to shape them into citizens that respect themselves as well as others. And we all know that they're truly the future of our province. And so when we look at the fact that every child is unique and their education should absolutely reflect that, that is what this bill is really truly about. I do want to say that there were some voices that spoke out against this bill, and ultimately those were specific comments made by an NDP board member, one of their union leaders, that referred to parents who choose charter, faith-based, and homeschools as religious nut bars and right-wing warriors. And I just want to say that's absurd, and it's disrespectful to parents, specifically to parents in my constituency. They are not nut bars. They are absolutely hardworking parents, everyday Albertans living in South Calgary and doing their best to support their families. These are South Calgary constituents who choose to send their children to faith-based and cultural-based schools like the Glenmore Christian Academy, the Jewish Academy, Trinity Christian School. Lots of options, lots of parents who choose those options for their kids, specifically in Calgary Shaw. We have families who choose to send their children to Foundations for the Future because they appreciate the mandate of that school around parental involvement and character development as part of a child's education. We have families who choose French, Spanish, or other language-specific schools, which is, again, an exceptional choice. We have families who go to Catholic schools like St. Sebastian Elementary, Father Doucette, the new All Saints High School down in Legacy, because they value Catholic education. I know families in my constituency who choose the Edge School, for example, because their daughter plays hockey or dances, and they get to balance learning the curriculum with their competitive passions. And I also have constituents who homeschool. And they do that for a variety of reasons. You do that because it works best for you, your values, your kids, but also, again, because whether your kids are in the arts or competitive sports, I have heard from parents who liked the balance that it allows the young children to both learn the curriculum and follow their passion. So not nut bars, but South Calgary parents who recognize that their families and their children have access to education that meets their unique needs of different kids. And they have that because of this province's long history of choice in education. So I also heard comments from the same person who said, this is all about creating brainwashed right-wing warriors. And again, something I find hugely disrespectful. Disrespectful because parents I spoke to wanted less ideology and politics in the classroom, not more. And so I do want to talk about that a little bit, because one of the stories that continues to stick with me when we talk about ideology was a mom, and I'm not going to share her name, but she lives in my riding, and she broke down in tears in her doorway. She told me about her son with special needs, and for years his needs were not met. Finally, it was Foothills Academy, a designated special education private school that really changed their life. And she did say that her son spent 3 hours, I believe, every single day on a bus to get to that school. And what brought her to tears was the former government's ideological war on charter and private schools. She said that their caps and their just ideological belief against these types of schools meant that there would never be an opportunity for a school like this to open in South Calgary. And when I was speaking with some of my colleagues, they brought up the exact story which hit the papers regarding that exact thing. Devastated with the province's rejection of new schools for students with learning disabilities. She knew what she was talking about. This is not about politics. This is about her being able to support the needs of her son. And when I listened to her story, I told her that I respect her, that I heard her, and that our government would do exactly what we needed to do to make sure that things like this wouldn't happen, that we would respect school choice, and that we would allow for these schools to grow and to continue to meet the needs of kids and families across not only South Calgary, but all across Alberta. And so I do want to also bring up, and it's something that came up on our town hall, that many will say these choices exist in the public system, and they do. In fact, and alternative programs exist in the public system. They are excellent choices as well, but they also exist because choice and competition created a need for those types of schools as well within the public system. And that's something that for my own son, he starts kindergarten in the fall. That's one of the options that we're looking at for him. And so absolutely, those choices exist as well, but they also exist because we have choice, we have competition, and there's lots of ways to meet the needs of kids and families because of that. I also just want to say too that there is no change in how these schools are funded. So the Minister of Education worked with education partners and school divisions on a new funding framework, but this bill does not change the levels at which schools are funded. And I got this question on the town hall last night, asking if now independent schools are going to receive more money. That's not the case. In fact, independent schools only receive 70% of the funding that public schools get. They also don't get any money for maintenance or capital. And so if in fact all of those students were to then come into the public system, we would have some huge challenges in terms of meeting the needs of all of those students. So they are not funded at the same level, 70%, and they do not receive funding for things like capital and maintenance, which are also huge costs. So I just want to say that I appreciate all of your feedback on this, going right back through to the campaign up until now. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your experiences. They meant a lot to me, and it's part of the reason why I was so passionate about this bill. I'm honored to be part of a government that is willing to fight for families and that truly does not believe that politicians sitting in the legislature can make better decisions for your family than you can. I will continue to stand up for education that inspires passion, allows children the freedom to follow their interests, meet their needs, respect their values, and ultimately find their path, whether that is through public, charter, language-based, culture-based, faith-based, Catholic, vocational, homeschooling, any of the great options that we have. This is hugely important legislation that will support this, and I was really excited to share that with you today. Have a great weekend.